Hey there, welcome to the Mental Perk podcast. I'm Carla Hutcherson, licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Brandy Mock, entrepreneur, author, and community leader. And we're here to talk about
real people, real issues, and real talk. You know, Mental Perk is so excited to be here on the SMU campus today, talking with some students. We are with the Office of Wellbeing. They are Michael and Michelle, and they are going to tell us a little bit about their roles on campus, and we're going to talk about mental health with college-age students. So that's what we're really focused on today, but I really want to highlight some of the statistics around college-age students right now, and they're not overly good. What we know is currently 36% of college-age students are diagnosed with anxiety. Would y'all agree with that, Michelle and Michael?
Yes.
I think that's a conservative number.
That's a conservative number.
Yeah. I'm not going to disagree with 36.
Yeah, definitely. So you would say that or higher at this point. Mm-hmm. And we also know about 30% are suffering with depression or some other mood disorder.
I highly agree with that. I think a lot of people are not aware of their mood disorders, and so this is probably even more than the 30% that's already.
And that's a super good point, Michelle, because I think a lot of people don't really understand what's going on with them when they're struggling, right? So I think that many students are probably not treated, or they're not really understanding the symptoms that they're dealing with. So that's something that we really want to raise awareness about today. You know, 12% are also struggling with trauma. You know, we think about things that happen to people while they're here, whether it's dating trauma or some other kind of trauma, and that can also lead to some of these other issues that we have. In 2022, only 40% of college students felt their school was doing enough to help with mental health issues. So there's so much room we have on college campuses to improve mental health care for students. And so we really want to focus on that today. We also know that suicide is the second leading cause of death for this age group. And so this is something that we really want to highlight as well. So we are so intrigued by SMU. We have heard so many good things about what you guys are doing for mental health. And so we really want to talk about what your role is. So tell us a little bit about this Office of Wellbeing and this WESTie group.
Yeah, so we work in the Office of Wellbeing, and they wanted to find students who could connect with other students and help bring awareness to general well-being. And that's, physical well-being, mental well-being, social well-being. And so that's our job, is we kind of connect with the community and, host events to raise awareness and educate students on how they could overall better their life in the different aspects.
Yeah, and just like adding on into what Michael was saying, I also think it is more of a personal connection with these students. Uh-huh. Some of them are more like scared of like reaching for the adults and just people in a hierarchy position. So being able to communicate and build that relationship with people who are just like them, students who've been in their position and stuff like that, is just more of a personal relationship, and obviously building off of what Michael said as well.
So you guys are kind of building that bridge for students as they are learning to be more comfortable with the leaders on the campus, that you guys are that bridge for them.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously mental health, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, there's such a stigma.
Yes.
And if you're a freshman, a sophomore, primarily, or even older, junior, senior, talking with an adult about that could be really scary. And obviously you're like, oh, I'm fine, I don't want to talk about it. We serve as that bridge.
And I love that. I think that's so important. And Carla and I talk about that a lot, is the gap between high school to college, relationships between the parents and the college students, y'all trying to learn yourself adulting. So when did the WESTies start? Tell me about when did it start?
So based on previous knowledge, people have said that it was like an unpaid job like years prior. So I'd probably say 1 or 2 years ago, it was just a voluntary position. Now it is paid, and there are, I believe, 10 WESTies, if the number is correct, and we're each affiliated with a different commons on campus, and so that's just like our regular dorms, and our role there is to serve our community best possible. So we normally hold an event every month relating to some topic of well-being, whether that be physical, mental, or social, and just really trying to build that relationship with them is very important. A personal thing that I just went through yesterday was meeting up with one of my residents in Bose Commons, and we walked through what her semester is going to look like next year. She came to me with problems about her social life and, you know, not going too deep into that, but just trying to build that personal relationship with them is very important. And I think that she's more comfortable in talking with another student who has gone through the process or has more tips and tricks than like a regular professor would have.
And I love that. It's a mentorship too. You're there's an accountability there, and be able to process and be able to relate to someone close to their age. I think it's so important. So I love it.
This is such a great thing, and
love
we hope that other campuses start to pick up on this
Yes.
once they hear your story and
Yes.
the success that you guys are having. So hopefully we're really highlighting this group and the things that you guys are doing. Well, what are some of the challenges or surprises that you notice about stress and mental health as you navigate your college career?
I think a big area for me, like a challenge with dealing with my own stress, is really just maintaining good habits and activities as like outlets. Mm-hmm. Stress happens. It's gonna build up. You're in college. You're figuring everything out. Finals, you know, job interviews, stuff like that. And the challenge is to prioritize. Okay, am I getting my physical exercise every day? Mm-hmm. Am I hanging out with my friends? Am I calling my mom? Am I continuously finding those things that build me back up to fight those challenges? Because it's so easy to get lost in everything. Oh, you get that tunnel vision, and you know, I gotta do this assignment. Oh, now I gotta go do this other project. I gotta do this class reading. Before I know it, it's 2 a.m. and I still have 2 more hours of homework in an 8 a.m. class.
Stressful.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
Very stressful.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the challenges I am like kind of going through right now is just trying to balancing life. And it's somewhat the same thing as Michael. I think one of the bigger things for a college student than a high school student is that you're trying to figure out how to be an adult while trying to be a student. And in most people's case, like trying to be social and how am I going to work towards my future goals? And you have so much on your plate, and it's easy, like Michael said, to like get tunnel vision and focus on one main priority, but then you have like all the different priorities. And one of the biggest things I tell my residents is that you are your first priority. If you are not mentally 100%, you're not physically 100%, no matter what you do in life will always be not your best effort and not your, like, you're trying your best in that just because you're not mentally there. You're stuck somewhere else. And that's what I try to tell my residents. Like, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to take that time to, call your mom or hang out with your friends. Like, I feel like our stigma in our generation is like taking a break is bad. And it's hard. And I even suffer this for like taking a break makes me more stressed because I'm not doing something productive.
Yeah.
And that's what I found like in Bose as well, like through my residents and stuff like that. Like people are like, oh, I hate that I'm on my phone so much, but they've been studying like for 8 hours plus that day. And I'm like, it's okay to take that break. Yeah. You sometimes just need it, you know, to like refresh and stuff. So that's just one of the challenges.
Those are healthy coping skills. And that's what we teach people, that you have to be able to realize when things aren't going well and when that stress is too high. And we've got to do some things to balance that in order for us to be productive in the end. And so those are really good, healthy coping skills. And, you two are in this position because obviously you've figured out that you need to have this, balanced life and be able to manage all the stress on campus. What are some of the pitfalls you see other students get into, the ones that you're working with?
I think for me is, and primarily throughout the SMU campus, is like a big theme is like overcommitment. Mm-hmm. People feel like, it's a very competitive school. Success is really important from the university and from parents. And so kids, I have one major and one minor, and that's rare. Everyone else usually has, 2 or 3 majors, 2 or 3 minors, in 3 organizations, with leadership roles. And so they feel like they have to do this.
Yeah.
And they have all this social pressure. Oh, my friends are doing this, I have to. My parents want me to do this. The school wants us to be successful. We got to maximize all of this. And so that's, I think, a big pitfall is they get caught up in the pressure instead of saying, okay, what's best for me, right? Adding 2 majors on top of your major maybe won't be that, like, it's not going to help you that much in the long run, right? But being able to fully commit to all your time and energy and be able to do what your one major 100% is going to have more benefits. And I think that's where they get caught up is I need to do everything, and then they can't do like one thing well.
So when you're talking to these students, how often do you hear that the pressure is more from not just being around their peers, but maybe from their parents? And how do you help them process that?
So I actually go through this a lot. I feel like growing up as a first-gen like child and not having my parents go to college here, it's a really big misunderstanding between what they expect and what I expect from myself. I found that I'm such a people pleaser at heart, and it's so hard to distinguish between what I want versus what my parents want. And I think that was just like a holistically like journey in general. It's hard to figure out, okay, like what is best for me and what do they think is best for me, and just trying to figure that out. I'm still in the process of just, trying to figure out who am I outside of my family or outside of my friends or outside of all these materialistic things like my degree, my grades, and like what I have in my life. Like, who am I alone? And I feel like, basing off what Michael also said, I think the pitfall also is people are trying to be other people when they're not. And so they do things where it's like, oh, because I want to look cool, or oh, I don't do this, no one's going to talk to me, and stuff like that. And you're trying to blend into the crowd instead of identifying the qualities that set you apart from other people and what other people expect of you.
Okay. And what do you think is some of the major common signs of anxiety and depression and you and the students around you?
I think for me, stress is obviously one of the big ones. It's the way people word their stresses. It's very, very different, especially how my friends talk. Like, it's so easy to say, like, oh my God, I have this, and this to do, but like, it's okay, I'll do it. And it's more of like wording it and your tone behind it, like as a joke, when in reality, it's not a joke. Like, you should take this seriously, like, and express your concerns about it. Like, an individual should not be able to go through all of that alone.
Right.
So I feel like it's so easy with our generation to be like, it's okay, I have 5 assignments, 3 exams this week, you probably won't see me this week, and all this stuff. But like, in reality, it's like, that's not okay. Like, what can we do to help you? How can we help you cope through all this and stuff like that? And it's obviously things you signed up for, but it's the way you're mentally preparing yourself to get into that situation is important.
I mean, all of us need support systems, and I think that really highlighting the fact that who's your support system? Who are you going to lean on when you are really struggling, when things are overwhelming, when you thought you could handle all of that, but now things are falling apart and it's 2 a.m. So how do you get that support?
And, I think what I do in my role with my students as well as with my friends is constantly communicating, I'm here for you. And most of the time, that doesn't mean anything. They won't use that in the moment. But when stuff really gets bad or they're really down low, that's when they'll send a text. And that's what I found has been very successful, is just, hey, constantly reminding, constantly communicating, hey, I'm here for you. Or, when I know someone's struggling, which often I think most people miss, they're just having a good time. They're going out a lot more than they normally do. To me, that's a red flag. To me, anxiety and depression hides in plain sight.
They're coping with something.
Yeah, they're usually coping.
You're trying to figure it out.
They're avoiding something.
Yeah.
And I go, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Or, hey, let's hang out. And usually that's just another thing, is spending quality time with people is always great. Because as people go through depression and anxiety, one of the biggest things they do is they cut off relationships.
They do.
And that's when they most need those relationships. So they need their friends to be there. And so, hey, let's go get coffee. And that I've seen a lot of benefits from.
So, Michael, that's really interesting that you say that. So now I'm thinking, you're in your senior year, you've got to finish up your schooling, you also have job interviews, and you're playing this role, and it's finals week, and you're getting lots of those texts. How do you balance that?
It's tough, and I just try to use my support system the best I can so that I can help others. And sometimes, I'm not able to get to everyone, or someone's like, hey, I got an hour on Wednesday. I'm like, that's like the one time I can't meet. Usually be like, well, what about something else? Maybe we can chat. Maybe, or sometimes it's just giving them a reference. Like, hey, you should go to the counseling center. Yeah. Maybe this is like so bad. But primarily I try to, rely on my support network, doing the activities that help me keep me 100%, so that when it gets to these like tense situations, I'm able to perform at my best.
Being the WESTies on campus, what has been the response to the amount of students that actually reach out to you. How do you get yourself out there to let these students know that you are available and that you're there to guide them and kind of mentor them?
So for me, we were both orientation leaders, and so we got to be the orientation leader for the commons that we were affiliated with. And so when I was the orientation leader for my BOSies is what we call them, or the BOS residents, I kind of just drilled it in their heads, kind of like, we are here for you no matter what. We understand that there's a lot going on as a freshman. You're trying to figure out how to live without your parents. You're trying to figure out how to live by yourself, squeeze in when to do laundry, when to pick up, shower and all that stuff. And then you're also trying to figure out, academics, because obviously it's not the same traditional,
right.
high school setting. You're trying to figure out, what orgs I want to be a part of. Do I want to apply for a job? Or do I want to be on a leadership board? Do I want to play in this sport? There's so many different factors a freshman goes through. And we've all, we've both been there.
Right.
We've both been in that state. And I think the most important thing is just, constantly reminding them that we are there for you, showing up to these Common Council meetings that we're required to go to, showing up to just any Commons affiliated event and being like, hey, how's it going? How's your semester going? Or when I see them down the hall, I'm like, hey, I haven't seen you in so long. How's your semester going? Is there anything I can help you with and stuff like that? And I think for me, going off of what Michael said, it's so easy to get caught up in the moment. And this is my Roman Empire that I've been thinking about lately. It's so easy to just walk through campus and assume that everyone's okay.
Yeah.
That I can just pass by a stranger and be like, oh, they look like they have, their stuff together. Mm-hmm. They look like they know what they're doing and stuff like that. But you don't know what's going on inside them.
Yeah,
you don't know what they're going through. You don't know. And it's so easy to assume that. And when I talk to residents about that, they're like, well, I just feel like everyone around me has, their stuff together. They have their to-do list on track. They have their emails checked. They have their grades really high. They have a great social life. And I was like, but have you ever spoke to them? Have you ever went up to them and be like, hey, how's your day? How is your day?
Yeah, it's almost, if you don't, it's almost like a robot. You're going through this motion of just making sure you're meeting all the check boxes off. Mm-hmm. And it's like you said, it's so important to actually look at someone and go, hey, how are you though? Yeah. A smile can be a mask.
Exactly.
It can tell people that you're fine, but you're really not inside. So I love that you guys are really reaching out to these kids, and I say kids, young adults. Young adults. You've earned it. You've so earned it. But I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm hearing you talk about how y'all are talking to these freshman kids. Do you think your parents prepped you for this? Do you think I'm hearing you talk about schedules, and you're giving them all these I'm hearing it, and I'm a mother, and I'm overwhelmed hearing you talk about how you're prepping these freshmen. Do you think the parents have help these students get ready on the level that you guys are right now? Does that make sense?
Do you think they gave them the training they needed to really understand what college life was like?
Yeah, I think unfortunately not. I think I was very blessed to have a mom who really cared about that. Mm-hmm. She's a counselor, very big into mental health and very big into making sure you're well balanced and well rounded.
Right.
And I have a dad who's very driven and pushes me to exceed limits. And so it was growing up, I had a great balance of both. Right. Both ends of the spectrum. And I think, unfortunately, most students don't.
Yeah.
And that's where this transition is so hard.
It is, yeah.
Mostly because they come into an environment that, yes, it's exceeding them, but they're not prepared to grow.
Yeah. And you're not prepared to grow. You don't know anybody, possibly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a little overwhelming. Yeah.
And if you even piggyback on that, so maybe what did parents do to get their kids ready for college? What about mental health? Did they talk to them about mental health? Do they really understand the triggers and the pitfalls they can get into when they get overwhelmed or too stressed? And so how many kids do you know that actually understand mental health?
Oh, I think none. I don't know about none. But
except for you.
But I think most kids have this mindset that I think a lot of parents have is like, just tough it out.
Yeah.
Get over it. You know, it's just a rough patch. And I'm like,
life is hard.
That's not exactly how it works. Like, there are moments in life you just got to tough it out.
Right.
But there are moments you got to realize, a football coach told me this, play, if you're hurt, you're still fine to play. If you're injured, that's when you need to come off. And I think that really relates. I don't know if
I like
that
that.
I do
connects.
too. I love that.
Right, and especially when you play contact sport, you're going to get banged up a lot, and it's, okay, do you have a little cut? Are you bruised? You know, did you get your bell ringed? You know, that's fine. But if you have a broken leg, you know, a concussion or something serious, that's when you need to come off. And I think people don't understand that every injury is just hurt to kids. I feel like, and the parents just tough it out. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's not like good advice.
Yeah, I think it's a generational thing.
It's a
generational thing.
Yeah.
I think you guys are more aware of, and actually, I think you're kind of schooling the parents to a point, don't you, Carla?
I
think
definitely
you guys are going to be so important because you teach the parents so much too.
Yeah.
But I love looking at that there's things that you go through in life that are hard or you're hurt.
Right.
And then there's diagnosable mental illness, things that are very, very real that are more of an injury. And and we got to treat them as such. So I think that's really important that, okay, we do need to come off the field. We do need to take a few steps back and look at what's really going on. So I think that's a great analogy. We know that your mom prepared you kind of for this situation and for this role. And so how do you notice kids who are struggling? How do you know? Because a lot of times they don't talk about it. And what do you do when you see someone who's struggling?
Yeah, so I think the first step to noticing is first having like genuine relationships, right? And then after you have those genuine relationships, then you can see how their behavior changes. And like I said, like sometimes it's not, I'm just like sitting in my room alone. Sometimes it's you're going out excessively. When you go out, you're drinking a lot more than you normally do. You're kind of pushing these limits. You're, you're a great student, but now all of a sudden you don't care about your homework. So I think that's important because the signs can be really tricky. And then from there, again, like I said, it's just constantly reaching out and constantly being available to be a resource and to be used. You know, you could lead a horse to the water, but you can't force it to drink.
Right.
And that's what I try to be is like put them in the best spot that they can succeed in. And ultimately it's down to them to choose to do so with the help if they want it.
And I have worked with suicidal patients for many, many years. And one thing I know is many of them say, had this one person not said something to me, I would have been dead. You know, and that person doesn't even know what they're doing. They're just making an effort to connect, to notice that person.
Yeah.
And in those moments, those things can sometimes save lives. And so that's so important.
Yeah, I highly agree with that. I think it's very important, especially at this age where you're trying to figure out who you are. And when someone comes to you and asks you for help, you have to kind of be open-minded to every possibility and stuff like that. And I think that's where, like going back to the previous conversation of, you know, parents and stuff like that, it's easy, especially for me, for instance, like being a first-gen child, it's hard to teach my older generation parents that, you know, stress is a real thing, anxiety is a real thing, and depression's a real thing. It's easy because they just grew up in a society where they were never taught that.
And you didn't talk about it either.
So
it was a you know, we talk about the stigma of it, but it was a huge stigma back then. If you talked about mental health, it was like, you know, everybody was going to judge you from that point on. And you guys have kind of jumped that hurdle to where it's truly caring, and there's truly something we need to address.
We're peeling back those layers.
Yes.
There's still a lot of stigma,
yes.
but you guys are really working hard to peel back those
Yes.
layers and normalize it, which is our goal. That's what we're trying to get out, is that the importance of doing that. So you're already taking on a lot, and so you're noticing these students. At what point do you know, hey, this is beyond what I can do? What do I mean, how do you know that? What are the signs that you see that means I need to get somebody else involved? I need to get a professional hooked up with this person?
I think personally when, for example, I just had this whole conversation with one of my friends, and I literally was really concerned for her, and I was like, I think you need to seek help. There are things where it's the way people word it sometimes. It's like, I'm really hurt from this. And it's something that I can only say for so long until it doesn't register for them. And I'm like, I'm worried for you. Like, I think you need help. And it's not a, haha, you need help. It's like, I'm genuinely worried for you. And I want you in the best way possible. And it's not because I don't want to hear you complaining anymore or, you know, coming to me about, I'm like, I'm always here for you. But I'm not, you know, licensed to give you advice or like therapy or any of that stuff. It's beyond that point. And I think it's the way people word it. And like, you kind of see a trend when they come to you a lot and they ask you, they're like, oh my God, I'm like really upset. And it's like about this one situation, always this one situation. You're like, oh, this happened again. Oh, this happened again. And I'm like, maybe once or twice you're like, okay, like maybe we can backtrack and figure out what it is. And then once you see it's like a repetitional situation, it's like, okay, I think there's something wrong here. I think it's something that you need to go figure out with a therapist or something like that. And I always tell people, like, I started on BetterHelp and I loved BetterHelp. Like, I think it was really easy and stuff like that. I know a lot of people have like different opinions of, you know, online therapy and stuff like that, but it was convenient for me just because I'm always on the go. I'm always like all over the place.
I think it's great. I think it's great. It allows you to utilize from wherever you're at. I think it's so important.
Yeah. And just like getting on BetterHelp just helped me realize that, like, yes, there are things that I can work through and stuff like that. And that's how I got into journaling. And that's how I realized, like, I just realized this yesterday, when I don't journal for a long period of time, I like things start to pile up in my head. I feel like I'm like
overloading.
Yeah. And I'm just like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, I'm overstimulated. I'm like, oh my God. But now I'm just like, okay, I need to journal. Like, no one talked to me. I need to journal. I need to write down all my thoughts and everything like that. It's like a brain dump for me. And and then I go look back and I'm like, okay, like, I understand why I was feeling this way because this person said something or this happened because I've had a different expectation of this or something like that. And I feel like that's where students, like, when I tell my friends, I'm like, hey, maybe you should try journaling. They're like, oh my God, why would I try journaling? Like, that sounds so stupid.
I already have to write all these papers. Now you're asking me to write again.
Yeah, I know. And I'm just like,
but you're able to go back and reflect and see your growth.
Yeah, that's what I tell people.
Which I think is so, and I was just fixing to ask you that question. Do you tell these people, do you tell these students, hey, the importance of journaling?
Yeah.
And then have you ever gotten to a point to where, like you said, let's say the person's not responding to your advice. At what point do you guys feel like you step in and say, we need to take it to the next level because I'm truly concerned? At what point do you do that?
Yeah, so for me, I feel like there's a couple things. One, I see, is this beyond, does this person need more than someone to listen to them and offer basic advice? Right? I mean, friends are there to offer basic advice, which is fine. If they need more, or I see like a change in behavior and mood among my friends, like, they're no longer going to go work out. They are big. And then I'm like, and then I realize, okay, even if I might for a little bit be able to provide great help, I'm starting to see there's probably a greater issue and you need to get help. And I think that's what people forget is that it's like sometimes like mental health, you need help before you get to like 100.
Oh, yeah. It's preventative. And I love that. Yeah. It's definitely.
So, yeah, it's like when I realize, okay, like we're in the early stages of this being a bigger issue. We're in the early stages of an injury. You need to go see a doctor or a therapist or someone who can better help get you and set you up to succeed and to kind of better provide help than I can. Because ultimately, I can only do so much. I'm not a trained professional.
Right. Yeah.
And it starts to take a toll on me.
Right.
Exactly.
No,
and that's very true.
Yeah.
And so let's say you have someone that's in your common or that you're working with and they're not being receptive to the advice that you're saying, go get professional help. Do y'all have a system that you know exactly who to go to? Do you contact their parents directly? How do you handle that?
Yeah, we have a form.
It's called the
CCC. Concern
care, and there's another part of it. I can't remember.
You can basically, it's a form. You can submit it anonymously.
Okay.
And basically I can say, oh, hey, I've noticed Michelle has some behavior that's concerning. I'm worried about her. She doesn't want to seek help. You submit it, and they'll schedule a meeting with her.
Okay, I love that because it takes a lot of the pressure off of you guys, but then someone's going to follow up. Yeah. So do y'all follow up with whoever you send that form to make sure they did follow up with the students?
So they don't directly contact us in terms of like when they contacted the said person or anything like that. But I do know like if I submitted one for my friends, they would be like, who did that? Yeah, who did that situation? It's like, who did that? And I'm just like, and then that's when I'm like serious with them. I'm like, hey, like it wasn't a matter of like a joke or something like that. Like,
right.
I feel like the things that you were saying genuinely concern me and your safety and your like well-being and all that stuff. And it's a matter of like, I want you to take this seriously just as much as I'm taking it seriously for you. And I feel like that's the hard part, is like people don't, I don't know why this is really random to say, but also like I feel like nobody takes their problems seriously, like their mental health problems. Like it's kind of weird when I see like texts from people and they're like, oh, like I'm really anxious, but it's okay and stuff like that. I'm like, that's not okay. Like, what are you anxious about? They're like, it's okay. Like, let's talk about something else. And I'm just like, I feel like they're not admitting to what they're feeling and like neglecting their emotions.
And I think that goes back to saying what you said previously, is sometimes they don't even realize it. Mm-hmm. It's like they don't know.
And I think it's so sad because they don't realize how treatable anxiety and depression is, and they don't have to live with it at those levels. There's so much that we can do to help them. Yeah. And so that's part of, I think, the message you guys are getting out with the wellness. But we want to just keep emphasizing that. I'm going to just open the can of worms. Tell me about social media. Yeah. How is it affecting these students on campus? Because I work with some SMU students, and I'm like, yes, I hear stories. So.
I mean, recently in the years, it's like more and more research comes out. I know there's a huge case with Facebook. Yeah. Yes. And, you know, the social dilemma. I don't know if you guys have seen that documentary.
Yeah, I have.
It's like scary.
Interesting. Yeah.
And social media, I think it's crazy because like it's such a great tool, but it's causing so much harm.
It is.
And unrealistic expectations. It's, you know, even myself, if you look at my screen time, I'm sure I spend a couple hours a day on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the scary thing is, I spent a lot of time on TikTok, deleted TikTok. That was so hard. I'd like go to my phone, try to open up TikTok. I'm like, it's not there. And then Instagram created Reels, YouTube created Shorts, and it's this like trap. Sand trap. Quicksand.
Yeah. How many followers do you have? How many likes do you get?
Oh, and that's what, you know.
How many shares? I mean, it's endless.
I've tried to be really good about like not caring. And that was really hard. And I'm just like, I want to post on my social media what I want to post about.
Yeah.
Well, like whatever I want to. I don't care if there's, I'm supposed to, you know, post once a month or whatever. Or, you know, once a day. You shouldn't be posting more than once a day on Instagram. Yeah. I try to do as much as I can. Because someone's like, you know, it's your page. And I was like, yeah, it
is your page.
It's about you.
It's my story.
Yeah, it is.
You know, one of the trends I really see is that people are dating through like Snapchat or whatever. And I'm like, they forget how to relate to other people. They don't know how to have conversations. And then their self-esteem is so low because maybe someone leaves them on open, whatever this is. This leave them on open thing.
The
or whatever.
open, the red. It's the red.
See, this is the older generation that I'm thankful. I don't know what any of this means right now.
I'm like, y'all don't just go up and talk to people or call people on the telephone? No.
Yeah, y'all don't talk on the phone, do you?
It's so weird, too, because it's like when I talk to my friends, it's like, oh, I know that person. I'm like, how do you know him? Like,
I don't really.
And they're like, and I was like, okay, let's go say hi. And they're like, no, we don't talk like that. And I was like, what do you mean you don't talk like that? We only talk on phone, through text.
Yeah.
Or
we have a friend, and she was like talking to this guy, and like, I don't know, I guess it was like pretty real or whatever. And she's like, yeah, but like, we went out to a bar. She went with her friends, and he went with his friends, and they're like, they've never met in person, and apparently he didn't talk to her at all, and she didn't talk to him at all. I go, they were like, kind of a thing. I was like, what's going on?
I know, they don't acknowledge when they're like face to face. They don't know who they are.
But I'm like, I'm
They've
wondering,
never talked in
did they
person.
follow up with each other and go, hey, it was nice to see you. Sorry we didn't get to chat.
They were planning to hang out after the bar. They're like, oh, like we'll go do something after. And, but they never talked prior in person. Wow. And at the bar, they didn't talk at all. And I was just in awe. I was like, what is going on?
We are so losing the art of interpersonal relationships.
Exactly.
We are losing the art of how to relate to each other and get to know each other. And so while I think there's good things of social media, this is the one area that I think is really affecting people's heads.
And it's also scary, too, because you got to think about everything from just the social side, but also the safety side of things. Yeah.
Well, I think another thing that it's, you know, I get COVID. We Zoom was a big thing because of COVID. I get the circumstances, but like now I feel like I see a lot of people using Zoom as a crutch.
Right.
I'm not going to go meet with this person when I can meet with them on Zoom. Oh, I'm not going to go to class when I can, you know, hop on the Zoom link and sit in class. And you know, I get, you know, people try to make stuff accessible, but like, I will always walk, the half mile to my professor's office to go meet with him instead of doing the Zoom link. He's like, I can just send you a Zoom link. Don't worry about it. I was like, no, to me, the in-person connection is being lost. And that's such a big thing.
How do we change this?
How do we change this?
We're losing
because
it.
I think it's not, it's obviously when you're talking about it, it's not just the young students,
I think it's
the
just
young, it's in
society.
general, the adults. I mean, because I'm hearing you say, no, I want to walk to the professor and talk to him. He's like, oh, we can just Zoom.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I want to see your face.
I can go. I don't mind. I remember one time it was like 4 o'clock on a Friday and it was like 100 degrees outside. I was like, I'm going to do it. Because it's better.
Yeah.
It's more of a real, authentic connection.
You need it. You need to feel the personal interaction of someone right in front of you. The screen doesn't do it.
So a coping skill for depression is being with people, right?
Yeah.
They're really connecting with people.
And this also brings up social anxiety.
Yes.
I feel like, and obviously I'm no, psychologist or any researcher and stuff like that. When I see my friends and they tell me, oh, I don't want to meet this person in person, or they stuff like that, like I'm anxious, I'm socially anxious to meet this person because I'm scared of what they are going to think about me, or if I'm going to say something wrong, and those types of questions and those types of comments and stuff like that. I'm like, I feel like technology has shaped our way of saying. They have the autocorrect. They're like, oh, it's through text. You can't really read who I am.
Yeah.
And like being vulnerable to that person, I feel like is the problem. It's like, oh, you're scared of this person not liking you. And I feel like it goes back, obviously to people pleasing and, all that stuff. And I feel like we use technology as a mask, as a way to like protect ourselves from people, or, trying to perfect ourselves in a way that people will like us.
Right.
And I find it just really interesting because I feel like pre-COVID, we never really had that. I feel like that like social interaction, like face-to-face was like normal. And now it's like when I hear my friends like, oh, we don't talk like that, it's only through Snapchat, I'm just like, you don't say hi to him? Like, I don't understand what, you're telling me you text this man for 5 hours straight, but you won't say a word to him in person.
They will not. And everyone's so worried about being embarrassed. And, and you know what? I stick my foot in my mouth all the time. And I know she does. This one all the time. But
oh, my God. I say things all the time. And sometimes it's not meant to be said.
But learning to laugh at yourself.
But you get it out.
Being able to be comfortable with that. And
there's
people still relate to that.
There's something releasing about it, right?
Exactly.
Well, and then on top of that, just think about spending 5 hours chit-chatting with someone on Snapchat or whatever, and then you meet them and you're like, you could have killed 5 or 4 hours. When you find out you meet them in person, you really don't like them.
Yeah. Exactly.
Save some time.
And it's like,
that time's valuable to you guys.
Exactly. And especially like with the dating world and stuff like that, like you're bound to, make conversation with this person. Yeah. And they could be a great texter, You could take, I'm not one of those people. I've been told by my best friend that I text like a millennial. Yeah. I was like...
Imagine our age.
Yes. I was like, are you serious? And I also do think it's because I got a phone very late. I got it like junior year of high school.
Okay.
So I was really late.
Your parents probably did you a favor.
Yeah. And so like, I'm like very blunt and straightforward when I text, and people are just like, it's just a joke. And I was like, oh. I was like, I'm really like straightforward. Like I don't really text that much in comparison to all my other friends and stuff like that. I value the face-to-face, and it's like you could see their real reaction, like get a laugh out of them.
It's not a smiling
100%.
emoji.
Exactly.
But it also goes back to
100%.
saying, because I'm like you, I'm very blunt when I talk, and I'm not like, I don't think I'm educated on the different emojis and what they mean. I know it's funny, right?
My patients say, Miss Carla, you're not supposed to use periods and exclamation marks. I'm like, you're not?
Yeah, I know. Oh, I didn't know that either.
Okay, period is very different than okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, period is like... There's an attitude with that.
Is not the same as okay.
Okay, well, we're going to have these kids to
I
give us some
rules.
Yeah.
I need these rules because, but it's just so interesting. And I'm so glad that you guys are seeing it too, because we've got to kind of change this.
We got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And again, depression, anxiety are enhanced when we don't have interpersonal relationships.
Yes.
And so it's so important to build those. And so that's why I feel that this is something we really can work on, and your organization can really start getting people to meet each other in person. I think that's so important. Well, I want to know a little bit about SMU. So what do we do for mental health on SMU? What do we do when we're needing to refer someone? What's the process here, and what do you guys have available to them?
So we have obviously the CCC form. We also have the SMU counseling services, and so we work directly with them whenever we do find someone who needs an extra push that needs to seek help that we can't provide for them. They have counselors on hand. You have the scheduling app website that you can schedule the appointments with. Dr. Tomatis is really good about presenting these stress tips for people, especially during finals or anxiety signs, depression signs, and stuff like that. They actually just did a tabling event in our student center the other day for Halloween, so that was really nice for them. But yeah, the counseling service is really good. I have heard a lot of people say that it's very helpful, and it kind of pushes them in the direction that they need to be. And I believe they just hired more counselors to accommodate the student body even more. Mm-hmm. I heard that there was a little issue with that in the past, but now they've hired more people on hand to help, people who need to seek that extra help and need to seek that extra push. And so I heard very good things about the counseling services. And
so I have heard that too, and SMU does have a really great reputation for that, and I know that they are doing a lot. They also have a great counseling program to train counselors here. So
that's where my mom came.
Well, I'm just thinking
SMU
about what you guys
program.
are doing. That's a whole nother added layer to making sure the students. How often do you think that these students, how many students do you think you guys mentor in your groups?
I want to say within Bose around 15 to 20.
Okay,
and that's manageable.
Yeah, it is manageable. But
really manageable.
Do you see how are you guys making sure everybody knows about you?
I was going to ask about some of your activities or things y'all are doing.
Yeah, so I like to say just good old fashioned business marketing is how it is.
Yeah, it's the networking.
I've got in my commons we have my picture posted everywhere.
Okay.
With my title, attending events, letting them know my role. We have weekly or monthly meetings with all the leadership for the Commons, and constantly, they're updating. There's a big pool of students who I'm responsible for all of them, but each group is kind of broken up into different. First floor, Mary Hay, second floor, shuttles, all this, and they're constantly relaying information to them, and attending events, shaking hands, meeting people, smiling, and hosting my own events.
Yeah.
I love it.
You're basically a politician on campus. Right?
Pretty much,
yeah. Pretty much.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So it relates a lot to the business world because
does.
if you want to sell a product, you got to go out and
sell it.
Knock on doors, and likewise.
And it's all about networking, knowing people.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in business. So let's say someone doesn't know you that's having a struggle, but someone else that does know you is able to refer you and say, hey, or if it's a female, how often do you find that there's a the crossover? Females or males wanting to talk to you more, or males wanting to talk to you? Is it pretty much even? Or?
I would say it's pretty much even.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a little bit more of a female attention just because,
they relate to you.
Girls,
Yeah.
I definitely have had conversations about dating on campus and, what that looks like. And it's not even, some of the conversations I have are very serious, things that are very serious matters and we need to take into precaution.
Right.
Other conversations are just oh my God, did you hear about the newest party on campus? Or, all that stuff. And just having those genuine and real conversations is what opens people up to be oh, I can go to her about anything. I'm always tell people, my door is open for you guys. If you need anything, text me, DM me, you have my number, you have my Instagram, all that stuff. And one of the biggest things that I feel it's very fortunate that I live in Bose as well is that I'm always at their events. I'm always at Bose Breaks, I'm always at Commons Council, I'm always at any events, and obviously I hold my own events too. And so they start to familiarize oh, she's always there. I know who she is. And they start to realize. And I actually asked my Bosies that, I'm how do you guys know me so well? And they're oh, because we just associate you by you're always there. You're always there for stuff, and you're always welcoming. And I feel that's the role of being a Westie. We signed up for this to give these students those opening arms to welcome them into campus and to tell them that it's okay to go through whatever you're going through.
What kind of events do you guys put on here on campus?
So I've had two. We do one about once a month. My first one was focused on social well-being. Like I said, we kind of But the theme for today is beyond mental health was the importance of connection and friends. And so that was my first one. It was called Fishbowl with Fish.
I don't know if you've ever played.
If you ever played Fishbowl, it's a fun game. But basically, it was about an hour long. You can make it as long as you want. But basically, the time of a bunch of freshmen came and we played community and they got to know each other. So it was right after kind of they just moved in, and so a lot of freshmen were scared to like meet other people.
Yeah,
Like, scared. Oh, maybe I'll DM them on Instagram.
Yeah,
but I don't know them like that.
Yeah.
It's a talk person, right? So that was the first one. Was like, how can we build relationships and connection in my community? And then the second one I hosted was we have a big going out culture, and like people like to party, people like to go out, people like to drink.
Oh, like the home bar. That's one I always hear about.
Home bar on Thursday.
Yes, there we go. That's what I've heard too.
Or Barley House is the best.
Oh
bar.
yeah, I heard that one too. So.
Barley House.
Sorry.
So the second one was about going out, safety and tips. And when I first came to SMU, I was walking to a class and I overheard a girl on the phone with her mom. She was crying because she'd been like roofied and the whole 9 yards. And I was like shocked because, I was very lucky to go. I went to small private schools my entire life where like stuff like that never happened. And so it was like this like culture shock. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's awful. Like it's something that I feel like you hear about, but you never think it happened like in your community.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been something that's always stuck with me. And so it was, how can I provide resources about going out?
I love that.
To these young freshmen because, right.
They don't know better.
Obviously, drinking's for those who are 21 and above. Somehow these freshmen do it. And if they're going to be doing it.
I don't know how they do it, honestly.
I don't either, but this is that may be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
So like there was something like these roofie tests that you can get online, and like obviously they don't substitute safe, practices about going out and making sure your drink's covered and not leaving it alone. And if you're gonna leave it with someone, make sure you know them. Well,
they actually have a fingernail polish too. Because I got my daughter a fingernail polish when she went off to school.
There's a scrunchy thing.
Nightcap. I wanted to do that. It was unfortunately not in the budget. I wanted to get 100 of them.
The budget for us.
It was like we're given such a small budget, and it was like $500.
Yeah,
I thought that'd be a great item, and when I was talking to my friends, and a lot of the girls were like, "That'd be awesome. I need that."
Well, maybe if you're listening to this podcast and you'd like to donate.
Oh yeah.
What is it you're calling it?
It's called nightcaps.
Nightcaps to the WESTies group here.
WESTies or any like university in general.
Honestly,
love that
because I feel like one of the conversations I had, and I can't remember who I had it with, but they were like, you can't stop people from going out. You can't stop these freshmen.
But you can keep them safe.
You can help them understand what is safe, what do you need to do in the situation, and, come up with a game plan. I feel like the biggest thing when I tell when I was an orientation leader, I didn't really do the orientation stuff. I kind of just gave them, like, the life lessons. Like, guys, this is our college hacks 101 situation.
I love that, too.
And, it was so interesting. But one of them was, like, okay, like, what should we do if we're going out? And I was like, come up with a game plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
When y'all are all sober,
Yes.
like, please know how are you going to get home? How are you going to get there? How are you going to get home? Yeah, exactly.
Verifying Uber.
Exactly. And if there's going to be a designated person who's going to be sober just to make sure everyone's safe, especially girls and guys, you never know what's going to happen once you get at the venue and stuff like that. And I was like, just making sure that you guys come up with a safe game plan and everyone has everyone's location and stuff like that. Because, once you're in there and you're doing all this stuff, it's like you get lost in the moment. And you're just like, oh my God, where are my friends?
Right.
How am I getting home? Situation.
There's a saying, if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail.
Yep.
And that's exactly
good. I love that.
Like, if you're going to go out,
be ready.
Make sure you're 21, obviously, but, make sure you have a game plan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Make sure you know who you're going with. Make sure you know who you're leaving with. And were you Ubering there? Who's, I like the sober friend. Usually when I go out with my friends, we usually have someone who's sober because
you never know
when you're drunk.
Somebody needs to be sober.
All your prefrontal cortex is gone, right? And so you want to make sure you got someone there who's holding you
accountable. It's not fully developed anyway.
Yeah. So what little you have is not really functioning. And it's like, if you do the small things early, it's easy to succeed, right?
Yeah,
you're putting yourself in a great spot to when, challenges arise or X, Y, and Z happen, you're prepared to handle those situations.
I love it.
So, Michael and Michelle, y'all have been such a great guest for us, and I sure hope that we can come back and do more because there's so much insight you guys have. What I do want to know is if anyone wants to be part of this organization, how do they get to be a Westie on campus?
I think
There's an application.
But if you shoot an email to WESTies at SMU.edu.
We definitely talked to our director about it. I had a couple friends who were actually interested. We just hired one of them, actually. That's funny. Definitely shoot us an email and, tell us a little bit about yourself, nothing too crazy. And you can just always why are you interested in being West? It's one of our biggest questions that we all love to ask, just so we want to see you genuinely be interested in our position and, continue the legacy that the West program has already started out here at SMU. We want to continue that and make sure we provide the best care for these SMU students and, just making sure that we are providing them with the well-being tips and tricks and all that stuff.
That is awesome. Again, thank you guys so much for being part of the Mental Perk. We hope to get all this out so people know about you and know about the resources you guys have on campus.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I think this is... obviously, there's so much stigma around mental health, and I think
there's just so much more to talk about.
The first
step
to combating is, talking about it, bring it up in conversation, making sure people are aware of the problem. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the first step in the right direction.
And we need more people like you to do that.
Absolutely.
So we're so thankful for you guys being proactive and not reactive.
Spring semester, let's get part 2.
Yes, of course.
Good job, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to talk to someone you trust. Get connected to a mental health professional who can help you find ways to cope and ultimately feel better. If you are having suicidal or self-harm thoughts or thoughts of hurting another person, please go to the nearest ER, call 911, or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Perk. We hope our talk today highlighted real people working through real issues based on mental health. Our goal at Mental Perk is to make sure every one of you knows you're worthy. We're in this together.